Good evening, everybody. President Trump today unveiled his national security strategy, one that above all puts America first. In a highly anticipated speech in D.C., the president said the United States cannot guard its interest abroad if it doesn't protect prosperity at home. And President Trump singled out Russia and China as rival nations that seek to diminish U.S. power and security. We'll take up the Trump doctrine with Ambassador John Bolton. Also tonight, President Trump and Republicans on the verge of a major tax cut victory. Rhino Senators Mike Lee and Susan Collins joining with the GOP, announcing they will support the tax reform legislation, boosting the chances of passage this week. We'll have a full report for you. And tragedy in Washington State. An Amtrak train making its first run ever along a faster new route hurtled off an overpass this morning, derailing, killing at least 6 people. The train was traveling at more than 80 miles an hour. Local officials had warned that such high speeds were bound to end in disaster. We'll take all of that up here tonight. Our top story, the president today outlining a new national security strategy of principled realism and global competition.
For the first time, American strategy recognizes that economic security is national security. Economic vitality, growth, and prosperity at home is absolutely necessary for American power and influence abroad. Any nation that trades away its prosperity for security will end up losing both.
The president's new strategy is organized around 4 pillars: protecting the American people, protecting the homeland and the American way of life, and promoting American prosperity, rejuvenating our economy through tax reform and new trade deals, preserving peace through strength, rebuilding and re-equipping the U.S. military, and advancing American influence abroad.
We are reasserting these fundamental truths. A nation without borders is not a nation. A nation that does not protect prosperity at home cannot protect its interests abroad. A nation that is not prepared to win a war is a nation not capable of preventing a war.
President Trump also confronting the rise of North Korea's nuclear aggression, radical Islamic terrorism, and he put China and Russia on notice. The strategy document stating that both countries, quote, challenge American power, influence, and interests. Our first guest tonight says President Trump made a critical point today. America can't have a strong position in the world without a strong domestic economy. And joining me now, former UN Ambassador John Bolton, American Enterprise Institute Senior Fellow, Fox Business Contributor. Ambassador, good to have you with us. I think it's interesting that you focus on U.S. economic power as the foundation of all other forms of power that flow from it. This has obviously was not recognized to any adequate degree by the previous administration. President Trump understands it. He's living it. He is driving what now, by the way, in the fourth quarter is approaching 4% growth after the second and third quarters reached 3% levels. This is quite a demonstration of leadership on the part of this president.
Well, and it's critical to success both domestically and internationally. Under the Obama administration, it was as if our economy was divorced from the rest of the world. But I think the point that the president made in his speech in the national security strategy is that strength abroad requires domestic strength, and the reverse is true as well. That's what peace through strength means. It means that we are unchallenged internationally, and therefore we're free to increase and expand our economic well-being here at home. So that kind of understanding, I think, has to inform all of our diplomacy and power projection around the world. And I think the Trump administration has made a good start on that in the first year.
What is there in the, if you will, the American zeitgeist that requires learning lessons over and over? Peace through strength is the 1950s. Peace through strength is the 1980s. My God, what does it take for America's leadership to learn shared wisdom that will apply in foreign policy year after year, constant throughout our history?
Well, I think it's the constant reinfection of liberal viruses that tell us that a peaceful world is the default position, that everything will be fine if America doesn't mess things up, that we're part of the problem in the world, not part of the solution, that we're too strong, too aggressive, too successful. I think that's what informed the Obama administration. And now Trump faces the dilemma not only of correcting the mistakes in the past, but dealing with changed circumstances in many parts of the world that make it much more difficult, Iran and North Korea being two good examples. And I think the way the strategy dealt with proliferation, with terrorism, and with China and Russia was right on target.
And when, in the instance of challenging both Russia and China, as they surely are challenging the United States and our influence and power around the world, that's the first time we've heard that since certainly 2008 from a president or a man about to be president, and it's an extraordinary statement.
Well, I think it's critical to understanding the strategic environment that we operate in. You know, the nuclear proliferation threat, the terrorism threat are the urgent and immediate threats before us, and obviously need to be dealt with, as I think the president did, dealing with the ISIS caliphate, and as he's trying hard to do with respect to North Korea and Iran's nuclear programs. But the broader strategic threats through the rest of this century are Russia and especially China. And that's something you did not hear for 8 years in the Obama administration.
And this president is also showing that he can, if you will, delight and revel in understatement just as much as he does hyperbole from time to time. The 14-1 vote in the United Nations, in which the United Nations Security Council tried to overwhelm the U.S.'s sovereignty, its support of Israel, and its focus on Jerusalem as the capital, if Israel so chooses Jerusalem as its capital. It was just simply, it had everyone in the Security Council just beside themselves. And then to veto the resolution was a magnificent moment, and you could see the president delighting in it, but at the same time staying very constrained and just pressing U.S. power straight ahead.
Well, I have to say I felt envious with respect to Nikki Haley today. I would have loved to have cast that veto. But that is a demonstration of what American leadership really is. American leadership does not consist of finding out what Europe wants to do and agreeing with them.
But we're a year past that, John. We're a year past that, and this is such a great place to be in. This president is wielding power as a U.S. president should. And it's truly paying dividends.
And I think more to come as well. I think the Israel embassy decision is symptomatic of a range of other decisions that are going to be made. I think it enhances the president's credibility, and that's something that's critical as well. You know, President Trump's been criticized by his opponents for being an isolationist, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. It was the Obama administration that was isolationist by withdrawing American influence from around the world, making it a much more dangerous place, much more threatening to the United States.
As you say, the farthest thing from the truth, and it turns out, well, whether those are domestic opponents or international rivals, we find they're usually the farthest thing from truth, their utterances and their declarations. This president is setting a new standard, and if I may say, it is great to watch happen. Ambassador John Bolton, good to have you here. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lou.
We're coming right back. Much more straight ahead. Stay with us. The president's attorneys claim President Trump, his attorneys, are criticizing Special Counsel Robert Mueller's tactics and accusing him of being unethical. Mueller obtained tens of thousands of emails from the Trump transition team. One of the president's top attorneys arguing that those emails were improperly, illegally obtained and violated in so doing the Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure. But for now, President Trump says he has no intention of firing Robert Mueller. Fox News correspondent Kevin Corke with our report.
It was a definitive three-word response.
No, I'm not.
President Trump's answer to a question about whether he planned to fire special counsel Robert Mueller came following an explosive claim by California Democratic Congresswoman Jackie Speer.
I believe that the president wants all of this shut down, and he wants to fire special counsel Mueller. The rumor on the Hill when I left yesterday was that the president was going to make a significant speech at the end of next week, and on December 22nd, when we are out of D.C., he was going to fire Robert Mueller.
Speer's comments echo an oft-used narrative in the media, one that's also been repeatedly shot down by the White House.
Is he setting the stage for firing Bob Mueller?
No, there's no conversation.
There's no way he's going to fire him.
There's no conversation about that whatsoever in the White House, Chuck.
None whatsoever.
You guys keep bringing that up. We have continued to cooperate in every single possible way with that investigation.
That cooperation, however, has become strained by the revelation that the Mueller team used the General Services Administration to gain access to tens of thousands of Trump transition emails. Prosecutors reportedly used them to question witnesses in the Russia probe. In his letter to congressional lawmakers, attorney Corey Langhofer accused the GSA and the Mueller team of, quote, unlawful conduct that undermines the Presidential Transition Act of 1963. During the transition, the Trump team used ptt.gov email addresses, including confidential attorney-client and privileged communications. Special Counsel Office spokesman Peter Carr said in a statement, when we have obtained emails in the course of our ongoing criminal investigation, we have secured either the account owner's consent or appropriate criminal process. Lou, let me tell you what a lawyer for the GSA said about using those .gov email addresses. He said plainly there is absolutely no expectation of privacy when you use one. Still, sharing that information with Russia investigators without notifying the Trump team, by the way, really has set off an enormous, fierce legal debate here in Washington over both the ethical and the legal justification of such a move. Lou?
And, you know, it's sort of interesting, Kevin, that someone would take the word of a GSA attorney and secondly, do so to the disadvantage of the President of the United States. By the way, those folks all hired, of course, by the Obama administration. Kevin Corke, thanks so much. Joining me now, Washington Times opinion editor, Fox Business contributor, Charlie Hurt. Charlie, great to see you. Wouldn't you like to hear the GSA interpretation of the law on TPP?
and not only that, they got that completely wrong because by claiming that a .gov website does not have any presumption of privacy is complete malarkey because, of course, there are tens of thousands of .gov websites, email addresses in the United States Capitol, in the Senate and in the House, and there is a total presumption of privacy on all of those unless they get stolen because, of course, Congress exempts itself from the Freedom of Information Act that applies to everybody, you know, everything else in the government. Yeah, so, any way you look at it, it's bogus.
Bogus, and I said, by the way, speaking of bogus, I said TPP. I meant the PTT. I got my free trade deals and the transition team confused, I guess. Let's turn to Jackie Speer. Yeah. She's got the inside track on whether or not President Trump will fire someone. She and Adam Schiff. I mean, I get the feeling they live on the same block in the same community in California somewhere, don't you?
Yeah, I always think it's so funny when these geniuses who have been wrong about everything, they've been wrong about everything about Donald Trump, always come out and claim to be some kind of expert at his thinking, and they know what he's going to do, and they understand, they have the sort of secret sauce for understanding this guy, when in truth, they couldn't understand anything, let alone all of the issues that the guy ran a campaign on, and blew all the Republicans and Democrats out of the water with, and ended up winning the presidency. So I find it amusing when these people come forth and start pretending to be a Trump whisperer, but they're kind of getting ridiculous.
I'd find it a little bit more amusing if Adam Schiff could avoid looking like an absolutely stark, raving scared to death deer in the headlights of an oncoming locomotive. I mean, he gets so excited about all of this and then says nothing, but CNN and the fake news folks dutifully transcribe his every word.
But you'd be terrified too if you had, you had launched this boomerang special prosecutor investigation, and after Donald Trump, thinking that was all that was going to come out of it, was all this collusion with Russia, and before long it turns out that the only thing we managed to be able to we hear about coming out of the thing is all the collusion between Barack Obama and the Democrats and the Republicans, all and the Kremlin, to deny Trump the presidency in the first place.
Yeah, it is startling. Who would have ever dreamed at the onset of all of this that the collusion would be between the Obama administration, the DNC, the Clinton campaign, and oh yes, throw in Fusion GPS and their erstwhile smear merchants, and add stir with the Kremlin, and you've got the concoction that they went after.
Yeah, you really do. But remember, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Donald Trump was talking about how he wasn't sure he was going to accept the outcome of the election, that they were going to try to rig the election, and he was hooted off the stage, out of the public arena, saying that he was a reckless kook for saying such a ridiculous thing. And then here we are now, Lou, and all of these things turn out to be actually completely true.
And I still wonder day to day, James Clapper and John Brennan in particular, how they're doing, because they've obviously had the forefront of their minds and concerns has been the United States, not a partisan view of Donald Trump, President of the United States.
Well, they still have a lot of allies in the federal bureaucracy, and those people are still, we know that to this day those people are still working furiously behind the scenes to thwart the president, both in terms of his agenda, but also in terms of trying to pin anything on this guy. I think they'll stop at nothing. I think of it. It's like the Night of the Living Dead with all the zombies. They're zombie bureaucrats walking around, and that you cannot kill them.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what does bring them to a close, or an end, if you will. Because Mike Morrell, the acting CIA director, is the first of the intelligence community. You called them zombies. I won't go quite that far, but he's the first to say, basically, I'm sorry. We overreacted. We took on Donald Trump when we shouldn't have, and treated him harshly and badly, which means that the intelligence community is acknowledging, at least in part, in the person of Mike Morrell, unfortunate actions on the part of the IC, to say the very least.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah. Charlie, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Charlie Hurt, as always. Be sure to vote in tonight's poll. Do you believe that finders keepers is the appropriate rule to follow when it comes to constitutional issues on the part of the General Counsel? That seems to be the way he's looking at those transitional team emails. Finders keepers. Forgot to talk to the judge and inform the president's attorneys. Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs tonight, and on Wall Street today. What else? Another record-breaking performance for stocks. The Dow shooting up 140 points. The S&P rallying 14. The Nasdaq up 58 points. All tonight at new record highs. Volume on the big board, 3.7 billion shares. Campbell Soup announcing it'll buy Snyder's Lance for $4.8 billion. Campbell's looking to expand its snack business and sagging soup sales. And good news for housing. Home builder confidence hitting the highest level in 18 years. And a reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast, on the Salem Radio Network. When was the last time you heard the Dems give the president any credit at all for the strength and the growth of this economy? We'll ponder that. Up next, shocking new revelations about the disastrous Iran nuclear deal, how President Obama sold out U.S. security and permitted Hezbollah to secure one of the worst deals in U.S. history. We'll have a full report straight ahead. Stay with us. Shocking new revelations about the Obama administration's appeasement of Iran. The Obama administration, according to Politico, backing off an investigation into a Hezbollah drug and organized crime ring in order to secure that Iranian nuclear deal. Fox News correspondent Doug McElway with our report.
Today, the United States, together with our allies and partners, has reached a historic understanding with Iran.
At what cost was the nuclear deal with Iran reached? A Politico investigation alleges the Obama administration, in an effort to reach the agreement, drastically curtailed efforts to interdict cocaine shipments into the U.S. by Hezbollah, a terrorist organization closely allied with Iran. For years, it has been known that Hezbollah had been active in the Latin American drug trade. In 2016, a DEA official told a congressional panel that Operation Cassandra, a massive law enforcement effort to stop the Hezbollah drug trade, was inexplicably curtailed.
For some unknown reason, we seem to have missed out on one opportunity after another. We seem to have forgotten about the importance of disrupting the supply chain.
Politico reports, quote, when Project Cassandra leaders sought approval for some significant investigations, prosecutions, arrests, and financial sanctions, officials at the Justice and Treasury Departments delayed, hindered, or rejected their requests.
There clearly is a huge pattern here. I mean, we pull out of Iraq largely because the Iranians want us out of there. And President Obama has no political and moral commitment to an Iraqi end state that's in the United States' interest. From 2009 January to the entire 8 years of the Obama administration, hands off anything to do with the Iranians and their proxies.
Several former Obama administration officials did not respond to our request for comment. A spokesman for Mr. Obama told Politico the administration was hard on Hezbollah, quote, through tough sanctions and law enforcement actions. The Trump administration has taken an entirely different tack in its Iran policy. That course change reflected in sober comments from Secretary Mattis here on Friday when he told reporters, quote, everywhere you find turmoil, you find Iran's hand in it. Lou?
Doug, thank you very much. Doug McElway. We're coming right back. Much more straight ahead. Stay with us. President Trump promises to put America first and stand up for our great nation.
With every decision and every action, we are now putting America first. We are rebuilding our nation, our confidence, and our standing in the world.
We take up the president's new national security strategy. Ed Rollins, Michael Goodwin join us next. It's on the verge of making history by passing their tax cut and tax reform legislation. The House expected to vote tomorrow. Then it's on to the Senate, where Mike Lee and Susan Collins have announced they will vote in support of the legislation that all but ensures its passage. Vice President Pence will also be on hand this week to preside over any tax vote. He has postponed his trip to the Middle East until next month. Joining us tonight, Ed Rollins, former Reagan White House political director, chairman of the Great America PAC, New York Post columnist Michael Goodwin, both Fox Business contributors. And great to have you both here.
Thank you.
Well, here we are. It looks like it's
extraordinary accomplishment. And I think I'm more than happy to give the majority leader some credit, but the president ultimately, we're going to have every single Republican in both the House and the Senate, with the exception of McCain, who had to go home but would have voted for it, voting for this bill. And it's been a long time since we've had that kind of support, and 80% of the country will get some kind of a benefit from it. I think it's a very positive thing for Republicans.
Look, and the fact they were able to get it done this year, I think was another big step. That they, there was all these calls to delay it, et cetera. I mean, the last being, of course, the election in Alabama. But I must say, with Ed, that I thought Mitch McConnell, he moved a lot of people in the last few weeks. Now, obviously, I think when we see some of the details of what the price was for that, it's not going to be pretty. But as a majority leader, that was his job to get it done, and he got it done. And I think it's a big event.
I can't help but wonder what it would have been like had he moved originally with health care to get it done as he has with this legislation, Mitch McConnell, majority leader. It could have been quite a different tone in Washington, could have been an even bigger moment, but I'm not in any way begrudging the size of this accomplishment.
I think there were two things. One is he didn't quite want to give the president all his just due. And the president played a very critical role in all of this in persuading these people and he's learned an enormous amount of how to deal with the Congress in the last 3 or 4 months. And if he would have been able to do that in the beginning and with McConnell would have taken him by the hand and said, here's what you're going to do, it could have been very beneficial. But let's move forward and take the tax and declare victory.
Yeah, this is a president who has, I think, performed well at every juncture. He wasn't going to take, I think really it was the majority leader who needed to take instruction, if I may, because he simply didn't understand history, the role of the majority leader versus that of the president. The president came with the agenda. He developed the agenda on the campaign trail. It was the people's agenda and remains so. And this is a majority leader and a speaker who I now believe are ready to listen to their leader, which is the President of the United States.
Well, look, as Benjamin Franklin said in a different context, we either hang together or we hang separately. And I think that's the...
He was such a bright Pollyanna sort of fellow, wasn't he?
Yes. And I think that's what the Republicans were facing after the defeat of Obamacare, the repeal, that if they didn't get this big thing done, and if Republicans can't pass tax cuts, what do we need Republicans for? I mean, that fundamentally is one of their main organizing principles.
The great thing is that now appears to be a moot question, and we can move on to what all are they going to accomplish. And I have to say, the president today asked if he would fire Bob Mueller. You could just see him, to me, I felt he was sort of reveling in being able to say to the assembled press, are you out of your mind? I have no intention whatsoever. It looks like Mueller's going to hang himself here.
Well, I think he's absolutely right on that. I think why bother? I think the critical thing here, one little point of Benjamin Franklin, he was one of the most brilliant leaders in the country and he never ran for office, which probably showed how really brilliant he was. But at the end of the day, he was a great influence on the outside. As you are. I think the bottom line here...
How did I get into this?
I don't know.
The bottom line here is I think the president's really is rolling. The Alabama had no impact whatsoever other than one senator missing. And I think people have put the responsibility back where it belongs on Bannon and on Moore.
Where is Bannon?
He's Japan, the last I heard. I think the key thing, and I don't diminish Bannon, I just think it was not a good candidate and a good campaign. And if they're going to win in the next fall...
I think, by the way, let's be clear. The President of the United States avoided a problem. However, you've got to have a little luck in this life, as this president knows as well as anyone. I think not having Roy Moore there to contend with is a major piece of good luck.
And I think there's a lot of... I think the critical thing here is we have to win some Senate races from the Democrats next go-around, and I think we will. It's our class in the sense that they have all the numbers up. We need to win them.
Well, we have the numerical advantage. They're going to have to defend twice as many seats.
Right.
Right. I would like to see before the midterms, I would like to see some bipartisan votes for something that the White House puts up.
Why do you want to even deal with Chuck Schumer? Why do you want to deal...
Not Chuck Schumer, Joe Manchin.
Joe Manchin is an independent in search of his soul. I mean, he doesn't know who he is or what he's doing.
I understand that, but I still think it's better for the country when there are at least some crossover votes, and I think...
Well, and you know what, not to test this thing too far, but what in the world makes you say, what is the empirical evidence that this would be a greater republic for Joe Manchin having a vote with the Republicans?
I think you get more public buy-in when you get people crossing
I said
the aisle.
Empirical. What is the empirical basis for that? Well, is there some historical fact that we could lean upon? Is there something a little more to guide us?
Well, I didn't come prepared for this, Lou.
Okay. Not in the last 30 years.
Yes,
well, I didn't bring the argument.
But I think that when the government, most of it in the public do prefer to have divided government.
Do you really care about right now this public? This public cares about one thing, and that's getting representation by their party of choice. And right now there's only one man delivering. And that is the President of the United States.
But I would like to see some Democrats recognize that the train is moving and get on it because it's the right thing.
Now you're
because it
speaking
has popular support.
You want them to jump on the Trump train.
Yes.
Oh,
that was always the point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, no, I wasn't suggesting the tax bill should have been changed to get Manchin's vote. I was because I thought Manchin was gettable. I thought Heitkamp was gettable. Remember when Trump flew to North Dakota with Heitkamp?
Yeah. And what happened?
A very easy thing for them to do. Obviously, we still have a budget battle to go here.
Let's get...
The critical thing is Democrats can stand up and applaud the president's speech today. The speech he made, the 4 pillars he laid out here, which is showing great strength.
America first, America first, America first.
Yeah. It'd be a great place for Democrats to step up and say, Mr. President, we support you on this policy.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll get more excited about it when I see one of them with the guts to stand up and say this president's doing the right thing and I'm on board.
Yeah.
To this point, not one has done so. Not one has given credit to this president for an economy that has that is 180 degrees from that delivered by Barack Obama. Not one has delivered, given the foreign policy and the positions that this president has taken in foreign policy, 180 degrees from Barack Obama.
Do you think they sit there and look at their own investment funds and say, wow, they're really going up? Maybe I should thank Donald Trump for that.
Oh, I'm sure that these people of integrity on the left sold their stocks immediately or probably shorted the market themselves.
That would be good.
It would be really wonderful, wouldn't it? Yeah. Michael Goodwin, Ed Rollins, thanks so much. We have had our bipartisan moment.
We agree it'd be a nice concept, just not going to happen.
There you go.
Maybe next year.
Well, we're going to be testing that as well. Thanks so much, Michael. Ed, thank you. Up next, the inaugural run of an Amtrak train in Washington State becomes tragedy. We'll have the latest from the scene. Here next. Stay with us. Federal investigators are now at the scene of an Amtrak derailment in Washington State where at least 6 people were killed in the crash. It happened south of Tacoma during the train's inaugural run. Fox News correspondent Dan Springer with our report.
Well, Lou, a terrible tragedy this morning in DuPont, Washington, about 50 miles south of Seattle, as a commuter train, an Amtrak train, jumped the rails and it over a freeway, and many of those cars landing on the interstate, toppling on top of at least 5 vehicles that were heading southbound on Interstate 5. All of the dead, 6 people were killed at least. All of them were on the train that came crashing down off of that trestle. At least 70 others were taken to local hospitals. Their conditions are varied. We know that at least 5 or 6 hospitals received these patients. There's a nearby Army base, Joint Base Lewis McChord. They, along with many other first responders, came out to the scene. It was a chaotic scene as they tried to get inside those cars to free the passengers who were trapped, and many people were rescued. There were 77 people inside the train at the time, along with 5 crew members, and most did survive. This tragedy could have been a lot worse, as that train has a capacity of 250 passengers. This was the inaugural trip for this route, a brand new route linking Seattle down to Portland, and it was designed to be a high-speed line